I do know what it's like to get a life sentence, and I got mine at 24. I was told I have a rare inflammatory autoimmune disorder called ankylosing spondylitis that is genetic, lifelong, and not curable. I've known what my destiny or fate is since I was 24. It is to become disabled and to have to move back to my hometown until in November, the chronic fatigue completely took over my body and there was nothing left of me. Chronic fatigue does not feel like being tired. It feels more like somebody is just switching you off. Like a battery got completely drained, like a device that went from 90% to 10% just suddenly. Neither you nor it know what happened. In my case, I would wake up and think maybe today will be a better day. It never was. I would feel malaised from the moment I woke up. I would drink some coffee, trying to wake up. It would take me hours to have the strength to get into the shower, maybe feel a second or two of freshness during, but then by the time I got out, this cloud of fatigue would just come over me and I wouldn't even be able to lift my head up, let alone read something that would cause an intense brain fog, drowning type effect. And I would have to lie down on the couch at like 10:30 in the morning. To get a feel for what chronic fatigue and brain fog do to your thought patterns, in 2019, even though I had started feeling unwell, I used to think, well, I have this sleep startup, but I should start a mental health startup that actually helps people be positive and build a process for themselves to improve at something. Then I can run them in parallel, make them intersect here and there. And I have a band, but I'm doing stand-up at a open mic that I like. I should do the same stand-up at a comedy open mic. So from thinking I should have another startup and do stand-up around town, I went to lying on the couch at 10:30 in the morning, only being able to watch reruns. Because new TV shows were too much for me. Because let alone psychological thrillers, which are my type of shows, I would choose something fun and funny, like Maisel or Fleabag, but because they're intelligent, I wouldn't be able to keep up. I would fall behind and then suddenly feel unwell and brain fogged and have to switch to a rerun that I'd seen hundreds of times. But more importantly, I started struggling for air. I wasn't able to get enough air all day. My systems felt like they were shutting down. And by the evening, I would be wheezing and gasping for breath. By my birthday in December, I looked like somebody taking their last gasps, at least the last person I saw in that state. And that feeling of doom had entered my mind that it's any day now, either tonight or tomorrow. I was okay with it. I made my peace with it. I wanted to go in peace. I didn't want to bother anybody, and I sure as fuck didn't want anybody to bother me. I was just kind of waiting for it. After 2 months of this kind of miserable, suffering existence, when I was still around, one day I just bought a little device to measure my breathing, which was around 50%, and then bought another little device to help me do breathing exercises. I actually had never given up doing my PT exercises because even if I died, I wanted to go with the best neurochemicals I could have. By the time I got to the pulmonologist, my breathing was 67%, but even worse while breathing out for some reason. 2 months later, when they did the full battery of tests, I was up to 80% because of the exercises I had been doing. And they were like, well, you're on the right track. Just keep doing what you're doing. It's something in the autoimmune disorder that is causing this. But keep doing what you're doing and see if it makes you better. So I found this new process. I stuck to it every day. Morning, evening. At the 1 year point, I started noticing that my breathing is not only better than a year ago, it's probably better than 2019. The interesting thing was that I kind of thought that there was a chance that when I fixed my breathing, that the chronic fatigue would go away. It did not. That feeling of doom that I could die soon was not there anymore. was at least less, but the chronic fatigue was still there. But since I felt a bit better, I took this as a sign that I can start my reboot process. So I'd already been fantasizing about having a mental health startup. I was also daydreaming about having a grunge band that plays the acoustic originals that I play, maybe some MTV Unplugged type of covers in all these venues that I like. I'm not a person who really has a master plan. I just start doing things and then things happen and that feels good and I keep doing more. So something like going to an open mic, you meet some people, you start a band, you meet some friends, you have some discussions, share some ideas, you start a startup. It just happens. And this time, nothing did. I was barely able to work 1 or 2 hours, maybe 2 or 3 days a week, let alone form a band. I was barely able to put up a song or two with a video of me. It hurt to play guitar. It felt bad because I felt like my hands were being pulled from both sides and I was in agony all the time and I couldn't play for more than 5 to 10 minutes. I didn't really enjoy meeting people, with a few exceptions. So Amrit in the Matrix Part 3 just crashed and burned before it even started. And I kind of failed at the only way I knew how to get better. And even more, I realized I failed at what I started out to do in my 30s. I could feel that this disability is coming when I'm going to be 40, but I did so much PT, that I put in so much effort that when I was able to do more, I thought I'd taken care of it. I mean, I'm not stupid. I know the story is going to end horribly for me someday. And I know my end is going to be horrifying. But I thought I'd moved it to 50. I thought maybe 55. And 55 for somebody like me is like, translated from Hindi, 1 foot in the grave and 1 foot on a banana peel. It's fine. But I didn't see this coming at 40. I didn't realize that I was just about breaking even until I wasn't. And even more, I'd started feeling this agony and discomfort inside my body, especially my hip muscles and my core muscles. That was a wrenching and writhing and kind of the motion of twisting a towel to get water out of it. And I could feel that in my muscles and could tell that I am going to lose the use of my legs and become disabled in a year or two. With the brain fog at the level that I was, I couldn't really achieve anything. So I asked my rheumatologist to send me back to physical therapy. This time it was advanced physical therapy, something called dry needle therapy and electrical muscle stimulation. I started at an intense 6 days a week, which drained me even more when the acute fatigue from PT clashed with the chronic fatigue. But I did feel inside my body again that this is the right thing for me to do. And it's my best shot at getting better and most probably my last shot at getting better. So I decided to power through and that I would keep doing this until I either got better or I go under. I believed in it, and that kind of works for me because I'm a belief-driven person as opposed to a hope-driven person. And they're just words, but I use it like waiting for a last-minute pardon is hope, and taking a rock hammer and Shawshanking your way out of there is belief. I was lucky in that I had a physical therapist who was an excellent match for me. He was extremely skilled and confident in his skills of dry needle therapy, besides a lot of fun Gen X conversations, which were very entertaining to people in earshot, which made me think, oh, an audience, maybe someday. But yeah, he did not get flustered at my atypical progress, case, personality, and read my personality type well enough to effectively be like, well, if you're hell-bent on Shawshanking your way out of here, here's a much better rock hammer, and here's much better technique. There were a lot of setbacks. I started throwing my back out a lot, but At the 2-month point, I started noticing that I'm feeling some joy from very small things. And it was almost amusing because I hadn't felt that for years. And for context, a year before that, my first startup sold. And that's a really big deal. I was supposed to celebrate. I was supposed to buy something. It was supposed to be the best day of my life. And I felt nothing. I did nothing. I told no one. I almost killed myself working for that startup, and it was my baby. And nothing. The best day of my life felt like nothing. That's what I meant by just because the triggers that spark joy are met doesn't mean that you'll be able to experience it. So I buried myself in physical therapy, and just about at the 1-year point when I was starting to make some progress, right around, again, my birthday in December, I ended up in the ER with an infection that I was unable to fight off. And after 5 hours of waiting, I was hospitalized for 4 days, which is kind of long by American standards. It took 30 hours to get a room because they were really busy, and I was lying in a mobile bed in a corner. It was a traumatic experience, but they also took care of me. By the time I got out, I was really weak, and it was a shock both to my system physically and psychologically. But I tried to think of it as a one-off. A week later, I caught COVID. That made me weaker, but I tried to think of that as a one-off too, because it was just a 4-day garden variety COVID. But 2 weeks later, one night, I ran a 101 fever and intense chills. The next day onwards, I started running a 99.5 low-grade fever with the chills, intense dizziness from sights and sounds around me, pain in my rib and chest area, and tachycardia, so like a heart rate of 115 just sitting here doing nothing. After 10 days, when it didn't go away, I went to my PCP, and they sent me immediately to the ER. And then after waiting for 5 hours again and all the tests, they found out that I'm not having a heart attack, but the same way that there's long COVID, there's also long unknown other viruses, hundreds of which are in the air around us. And I have something like long post-viral syndrome from one of these viruses, most likely because I'm autoimmune. In hindsight, between 2015 and 2017, I had something called vestibular neuritis, which is intense motion sickness and dizziness from an inner ear infection that is supposed to take 2 weeks to recalibrate. In my case, it took 2 years. It was really hard to deal with while running a startup and doing that much physical therapy. But it was probably because I'm autoimmune. And same here, I have this post-viral syndrome. Because I'm autoimmune, it ravaged through my already weak immune system and my nervous system. And just when I was trying to deal with the tachycardia, the rib pain became a stabbing kind of pain in between each rib, the front, on the side, in the back, in the shoulder blades, to the point I wasn't even able to lift grocery bags anymore. I wouldn't be able to get out of chairs because I apparently used my hands to push down to compensate for my hip. I was back to 2003, awake in the middle of the night, in pain and unable to turn myself over. And then I got diagnosed with some sort of myofascial pain or nerve pain or most likely cartilage pain called costochondritis with the chills that is an immune response. And after trying to just deal with the pain with anti-inflammatory meds and topicals, I had to be put on a nerve pain medication, which was really heavy for my system. I was already not able to scroll. Now I wasn't able to read because there was a whole fishbowl kind of vision. The dizziness from my vestibular system, which already was like a ringing and popping in my ear, became a full-fledged washing machine kind of feeling. But at the same time, the drug made me both drowsy, but also gave me some excess adrenaline. So I decided to go back to physical therapy and do as many lower body exercises that I could while my upper body was not working, while running electrical stimulation through myself. After 6 months of that insanity, the pain started coming down a bit, and I left the drug, which immediately caused full-blown insomnia. Like my brain forgot how to initiate sleep, and I had to put myself through the same cognitive behavioral therapy for insomnia practices that I taught so many people. I actually learned even more about how to pull it off because I had to do it back to back twice because my immune system and nervous system were completely shot. And then, like a horror story that just won't end, I woke up one day, unable to see, with my right eye completely red and pain behind my eye every time I tried to focus. And after 5 days of hoping that it was pink eye when it didn't get better, I ended up in the ER again, this time the eye clinic ER. And again, after waiting for 5 hours, I got diagnosed with something called uveitis, which I'd read about. It's an inflammatory eye disorder that is recurrent. I had read about it the first time I read about my disorder because it's comorbid with my ankylosing spondylitis. Sitting in that waiting room, tired and hungry and unable to see, I broke. After 20 years, I finally broke. I felt like I am the sickest person I know. And all these narratives I've made up that, yeah, I have a lot of atrophy, but if I do more PT than anybody has ever done, then I'll be able to fix myself and have a life that I want and like. And that's not true. And the narrative I've made up that maybe in doing all these exercises, breathing exercises, PT exercises, maybe I've fixed a part of my autoimmune side, the autoimmune side of my disorder, because I'm not sickly. That's false too. I'm as sick as it gets. I'm as autoimmune as it gets. I'm not getting any better. I'm not gonna get any better. My systems are shutting down one by one, and I'm dying. Yeah, I broke in there, and not in a crying kind of way, like my heart broke. I mean, I felt pain in there. Since then, in the months and a year now, reading has been a huge challenge, and sometimes I'm just not able to do it because it makes me very dizzy and disoriented, especially reading from devices, especially more than a few minutes. Same with the hearing, constant ringing and altitude type of popping sound and pain sometimes becomes a full-fledged gushing, and all of them cause a lot of vestibular dizziness. And the combination of the two just makes me completely unsettled and unwell. So I don't know what's going to happen to me next. And I don't know how long I have, especially with the abilities that I'm used to. I've realized now that it's no longer a wise decision, a good strategy for me to invest time, money, and energy into the years away future to be better then at the expense of anything I can do today, because that future is not guaranteed. And the abilities I have today are not guaranteed tomorrow. And things can get much worse for me. Things can get much worse overnight. And in having this disorder for more than 20 years, I have become very good at, and I've put a lot of effort into being able to hone in on what has improved. Like, I can play guitar sometimes now, and I wasn't able to for many years. So I'm going to do the things I can, whenever I can, while I can, like playing guitar and now this podcast. It's something I can do. It's something I'm good at. It's something that's good for my brain to monologue from one episode to the other. And if my abilities start shutting down, this might be the last one to go. Just like anybody else, I wanted to do this when I won. Something like this when I won. I did not win. My 2022 notes say, at least I broke even. I did not break even. I lost. I lost at my goal of fixing myself so that I could have the type of life that I liked, the type of life that I want. But I'm not stupid. I know that just staying alive past 24, past 32, past 40 is a huge accomplishment in itself, and maybe some of the things that I've achieved along the way might be or seem even bigger. Despite all this, many people who know me will tell you that I am one of the happiest people they've ever met. And even some people who met me in 2024 for the first time will say that he's probably one of the happiest looking people they've ever met. The more I do this music thing, I realize it's much less talent and almost all hard work. Same with the happiness thing. It is less what I was born with or how I was raised, and much more the things I've done every day in my head to have the best day I can. I expect the next episodes to be much more fun, much more funny, much more interesting and joyful, and at the same time talking quite a lot actually, about mental health and health improvement, because this combination has been my way of trying to get better. And I believe that it's a great way to actually consume heavy information. And that's why I recorded this episode, so that I don't have to start from scratch every time and can refer back to it. So if I'm doing a solo podcast, I can actually zoom into something and talk in detail. Or if I have a guest on and they say they're struggling with something, I can be like, when I had this is what it felt like. Or when I had this is what I tried to get better. And anybody who's listening, if you have a disorder, then sometimes it's just nice to relate. But even more, you can be out of ideas, and just hearing these conversations can sometimes spark an idea. And if you don't have a disorder, sometimes it's just good to hear these words and know these words and thought streams, just in case something happens to somebody around you. And more importantly, somebody like me wonders, well, if I had to do all this just to survive, what if somebody who does not have a disorder does these things? Like, would they be the best of the best that they can be? Would they soar and be completely unstoppable? When I was much younger, back in college, anytime a woman who I was interested in told me, "You're really funny," I thought it was amusing and mischievous to whisper in her ears that funny is number 7 on the list of things I'm good at. By my upper 30s, I still used to say the same thing, but I realized that with all the things I've had to learn and get really good at to survive, funny is probably number 7 on the list of things I'm good at. So if you want to see some of 1 to 6 on display and like me whispering in your ears, but more importantly, if you like the idea of some joy, some fun, some entertainment, while you figure out ways of helping yourself along the way, then Bandying just might be right for you. And I'll see you in the next episode.